Bill with the DC Housing Finance Agency. And this is our famous IT people, Eric. We normally, have our PR department film these, but they had a conflict. So they're set the camera up and told me don't move around a lot. Because we do put these on Facebook. You can see past sessions on Facebook under Open Doors. So I'm taking it. Any of you guys own a house before or no? All first time home buyers? Any of you? Oh, are you the realtor for the class here or?
No.
Yeah. Gotcha. I was gonna say they're running late. So I always like to tell people, in fact, I joke, if anybody brought like 400,000 cash with you, you can skip the class and go right out with the realtor and start looking. Because you're really trying to borrow a couple $100,000 from a bank. And they're not going to lend any kind of money unless they know the answer to three things. One, what's your credit look like? Now, it's not just a score. It's, have you borrowed and paid back money over time and larger amounts of money buying? I mean, a $5,000 credit card is a lot better than having a $500 limit credit card. Everybody kind of knows credit. The other thing is obviously your income. I'm pretty sure if you make $80,000 a year, you're not going to be able to buy a house with a $1 million price tag. But they're going to look at your income and then they're going to balance that against the debts that show up on your credit report. So they're not counting your cell phone bill, utilities, anything like that. They're only going to count the debts, like I said, on your credit report, such as car payments, installment loans, stuff like that. Now they look at student debt differently, depending on where you are in your debt. But the bottom line is they want to see what your current debts are so that they know if they lend you that kind of money, you're going to be able to make the payment. Typically, you can go up to 50% of your gross income and still be approved to purchase if your credit is pretty good. Now, that's that's a lot more than most people want to spend on their mortgage. But, if you make $10,000 a month, your new mortgage payment plus all your debts could be as high as $5,000 a month total. And again, if you have good credit, you're going to be approved. Now, HPAP has a debt to income limit of 45. So in that instance, if you made $10,000 a month, your new mortgage payment and all your debts couldn't be more than $4,500. So they're going to look at your credit. They're going to look at your income compared to your debts. And just knowing those two factors alone, a lender can tell you exactly what your maximum sale price is. Because the third thing they want to know, the lender, before they lend you that kind of money is, are you going to put any money in the deal? Are you going to put any money as a down payment? A lot of people are under the misconception that you have to put down 20%. The actual fact is, if your credit is halfway decent and you have income versus, not a lot of debts, the minimum amount you have to put down when you buy a home is only 3% of the sale price. I'm going to say 3% or 3.5%. It's not 20%. There's two kinds of loan you can get through our programs in DC. Either a conventional loan, that's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They're the ones, if you have better credit score, they only require you to put 3% down. An FHA loan is a government-backed loan that requires you to put down 3.5%. It's a little easier to qualify for an FHA loan than a conventional, but again, they look at something like student debt as a good example. They look at that a little different than our lenders. And I think this could be our loan officer. Hello. Yes, and I'm on television right now doing my class. So yeah, just pull up to that gate and the intercom and they'll buzz you in. Oh, well, okay. Did you turn right and walk straight to the door? Did you go up the ramp or did you turn right? Yeah, so park and then the way you were pointed in the car, walk that way, walk down the block. You'll see it says exit. There's a door. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, I think that's our loan officer who's on their way. So FHA requires you to put 3.5% down. Conventional requires you to put 3% down. Any vets in the audience? Because the VA loan's the best loan you can get. It doesn't require you to put any money down. But you have to obviously be a vet to get that kind of loan. So it's either 3% on a conventional loan, 3.5% on an FHA loan. The Open Door program works on the premise that, well, if you have the credit, the income, the only thing you're missing is the down payment. So that's the amount of down payment that the Open Doors provides. 3% on a conventional, 3.5% on an FHA loan. The stipulation with Open Doors is you must use a lender who participates, such as My Mutual Mortgage. Whoops, she's, I think, in our parking lot, trying to find the doorway in here. So as long as you use the lender that participates and you tell the lender, I want to go through the Open Door program, it's the lender that's actually going to be the one who, I should say, applies on your behalf. For Open Doors, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. You can't buy any kind of a rehab 203K loan and use Open Doors. You can't buy a co-op and use Open Doors. You can buy a 2, 3, or a 4-unit building, as long as you're going to be living in one of those, and still get down payment assistance from Open Doors. I might just caution a little bit. There's, like I said, 2 loans. An FHA loan with down payment, that rate, our rate with down payments are always going to be slightly higher than the market rate with no down payment. The money we lend you is due back in 30 years at no interest with no payment, so we don't make money on that. You just pay us when you sell or refi. But some days our FHA loan with down payment may not be there because of the market. But typically, like I said, you can do a 2, 3, or 4-unit purchase. And here is our lender, the very famous Kathy Hesper. You can just swing a chair around or have a seat, so no big deal. Is your realtor?
He is trying to find parking.
Gotcha.
So sorry.
So no worries. Open Doors and the other down payment program, they operate differently. So you can buy a 2, 3, 4 unit, as I said, with Open Doors. You don't have to be a first-time home buyer. We only count the income of the actual borrower on an Open Door loan. So if you're a husband, wife, and 20-year-old going to live in a home, but the wife is the only one who's going to be the borrower, we will only count the income of the actual borrower. And the income limit for Open Doors is $199,200, meaning the borrower must make less. So if you do have a husband and wife and she is the borrower and she says, well, you know, he's the father of my kids, I love him, I want to put him on title, I know he doesn't have a credit score, so he's not a borrower, we're fine with that, and the lender would be fine. In other words, you can be a borrower and put a spouse or anyone on title. And again, Open Doors will not count the income of anyone unless they are a borrower. So that's one down payment program. That's, I like to say, our down payment program, because I work for the DC Housing Finance Agency. That's where we are. I'm not a DC government employee. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I know they're taping, so I just want to be clear. But there is a DC Department of Housing and Community Development over on Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, and they have their own down payment program. And that program is called HPAP, Home Purchase Assistance Program. So first of all, don't say the HPAP program, then people will know you have no idea what you're talking about. You want to say HPAP. It's been around for almost 50 years. And what they do is they have let the Greater Washington Urban League be the administrator until 2017, when our agency became a co-administrator. So all that simply means is either they, the Greater Washington Urban League, or us, issue borrowers NOEs, notices of eligibility, and then underwrite the files when they do come in. So a couple things, the way this program works is you have to apply for this program. So unlike Open Doors, where you simply use a lender who participates, you have to apply by picking up the phone and contacting what's called a community-based organization. First of all, if you don't live in DC, you can apply, but you'll go to the end of the line. And if you don't live in DC, the line for HPAP right now stretches from DC into Maryland and into Virginia. So you have to have established residency in DC already to apply for HPAP. Open Doors doesn't care where you currently live as long as you're going to buy in DC. So HPAP, you have to pick up the phone and say, I want to apply for HPAP, and you do that by contacting a community-based organization. There's about 9 or 10 in DC. University Legal Services, Housing Counseling Services, MANA, Marshall Heights, Lydia's House, Latino Development. And they're the ones who will really take over from that point. The moment you pick up a phone and say, I want to apply for HPAP, it will be almost 45 days before you will get what's called a notice of eligibility, an NOE.
Or 6 months.
I like to say the counselors, if they, I'm being taped, so, they leave, drop the ball, not real sure. It is sometimes going back and forth. The normal turn time is almost 45 days. It's a household income, first-time home buyer program. And when I say household income, if grandma's going to live in the home, they want to see grandma's income. If it's a husband and wife and they have a 20-year-old who works part-time at McDonald's, they want to see those pay stubs. So they have to apply, and like I said, it'll be about 45 days until they get what's called a notice of eligibility, an NOE. That'll say, we've looked at your household size and your income, and you're eligible for this much. A couple things to note about the NOE. I like to tell lenders that NOE is kind of worthless because they're always going to recalculate the borrower's income. The NOE is good for 1 year, meaning you must have a ratified contract within that year. So you could get your NOE today and walk around DC for 6 months looking for a home. And then 7 months from now, you find the home. But in that meantime, you've gotten a raise or you started doing another part-time job, which is a good example. A lender's not going to count any income unless you've been doing that part-time job for at least 2 years. Same thing with overtime. They're not going to count it. HPAP will count. If you started doing DoorDash and you've been doing it for a month, they'll ask how much you made in that month. They'll multiply that by 12 and add that to your household income. They're looking at your income to determine your eligibility income for these programs. The lender's looking at your income to determine your affordability. So the lender's underwriter is very stingy. The HPAP underwriter is very generous. So HPAP says you have to apply by contacting a community-based organization saying, I want to apply. It's going to be about 45 days. They're going to collect all the income, asset, make you go through a class. This class, by the way, is, I sometimes say you learn more in this class than you will in those 8-hour class, but we don't give out a certificate. This is informational purposes. Some of them make you do a budget. Some of them make you talk to 2 or 3 lenders. I like to tell people until they submit a full application, we're only going to issue the notice of eligibility when they submit an application. Up until that point, it's all on them. Once you get your NOE, like I said, it's good for 1 year. It essentially says, go find a house and go find a lender. Now, I always say you should be talking with a lender the moment you decide to buy a home. They're the ones who know what your credit and income look like. So they give out 6 different loan amounts ranging from a minimum of $70,000 to a maximum of $202,000. However, they'll give you $4,000 for closing costs, which is part of the lien, the second mortgage. So they actually give out anywhere from $74,000 to a maximum of $206,000. They like you, just like Open Doors program. We like you, but we don't love you. That money has to be paid back. In fact, HPAP says if you get the bottom 2 amounts, the 74 or the 84,000, you have to start paying that money back in year 6. They'll actually give you 40 years to pay it back, and obviously there's no interest. But you do have to start paying it back. Like I said, it's not a grant. It's a loan. It's a lien. So they give out anywhere from 74 to 206. It depends on household size and income. They're going to recalculate your income when you make an offer. The only thing about HPAP is they have some kind of strict guideline, not strict, but as far as debt to income, their max, like I said, is 45%, meaning your entire mortgage payment plus all your debts cannot add up to more than 45% of your income. They will make exceptions with compensating factors. In other words, if your entire debt to income is 45.3, you may be able to get that through. That's another example. Open Door says there is no compensating or exceptions to our debt to income rule, but Open Doors will go to 50% in some cases. And anytime you can't combine programs, which you can absolutely use as many programs as you can stack together, you always just have to meet the more stringent guidelines. So HPAP says you can imagine if you're a single person making around, I want to say 49,000, and you have no debt, no car payment, no credit cards, no student loans, you may be able to find a condo with a sale price of 300. And if you make 49, you're going to be eligible for 206. So now, while they will let that second mortgage be larger than your first mortgage, what they're going to say is HPAP is gap financing. If you don't need the entire 206 in this case, they're going to take it away from you. And the way they determine that is they're going to look at what your mortgage payment is. Your mortgage payment, a lot of people call it pity payment, principal, interest, taxes, insurance. And insurance, I mean, if there's, your homeowner's insurance, and if there's mortgage insurance, and then a condo fee or homeowners association fee. And they're going to say your mortgage payment must be at least 28% of your income. So I had a loan officer complaining to me a week ago that he said my borrower's debt to income, the back ratio is 35%. HPAP maximum back is 45%. I don't understand what the problem is. And first thing I said is, what's your front ratio, the mortgage payment? And he said 21. And I said, that's the problem. It has to be at least 28. And the only way he's going to get it to 28 is by raising the amount that the borrower's buying on their first mortgage and lowering the second until that gets to be 28. Because this is gap financing. It's designed to help people. If you don't need the entire amount that you're eligible for, they're not going to give it. And they're not going to penalize people for not buying too much of a house. But that's how that program works. The other things you got to watch with HPAP is it requires contract addendums. The sellers know you're getting an HPAP. It's a 45 to 60-day contract. If Kathy were to submit an Open Door loan today to our underwriting department, that Open Door loan will sit for 2 days before the Open Door underwriter picks it up. And then probably it'll be done in another 24 to 48 hours. If she submitted, and like I said, let's say they have a borrower who's using both loans and submitted both loans today, the Open Door loan will be reviewed in about 2 days, and maybe within 4 or 5 days, they'll be emailing Kathy saying, hey, your Open Door loan is approved for settlement, 3 weeks from now or whatever the day is. If she were that same day she submitted her HPAP loan, that loan's going to sit for 3 weeks, gathering dust, until an underwriter picks it up. Because so many people have applied for the program, we're so short-staffed, those loans sit for almost 3 weeks before an underwriter can even review it. So you have to be aware of both programs. They operate different ways. So now that we have a full complement of lenders and realtors, yes, nice to finally get here. Like I said, anybody have any questions for me? By the way, we normally have sandwiches. They got pizza. So help yourself, grab a pizza. But does anyone have questions for me or off the top before I turn it over to the, I always like to say you need a lender and you need a realtor when you're buying a home. Okay, now, I think both of them think they know more about the other's job than they really do, but.
Work well.
Okay, so yeah. But I always said, when I used to be a loan officer, I always said, and I had plenty of realtor friends, but you would walk in, I would give you my pre-approval letter. And honestly, I'd say, until you find a home, I don't really need to talk to you unless you do something stupid like buy, a car or something.
For a plane.
Okay, right. But once you have a pre-approval letter, you're essentially then in the hands of the realtor because you're like, look, Kathy told me I can go up to 400,000 and she'll be approved. Okay, she told me what the payment is. Now, remember, she's telling you what the payment is using a rate today. You don't know what the rate's going to be. Nobody really knows what the taxes are, but she can guesstimate. And every time I did that, someone would be like, okay, Bill told me 400. I'm a lot more comfortable around 350 or 3. So find me a 16 bedroom with a jacuzzi that's under 300,000 in DC. Now, so excuse you, but yeah, the bottom line is it's the realtor who I always like to say it's like buying food. You know, if you went into the grocery store, would you want to go and pick out your food and get to the grocery checkout and then find out what your budget is? Or would you rather know your budget going in and then have someone like an expert realtor point out the savings? You know, this is a better deal than that. But as long as you know the dollar amount first, it makes the process a lot easier. So I'll still be here and floating around, just a few housekeeping tips. If anyone does have any questions while they're thinking, if you did drive in here, when you drive back out, there's only one way in and one way out. And the weight of your car will open the gate. As I said, we put them on Facebook. We normally post them live, but our PR department is not here, which is why I'm standing still and trying not to move too much. But we are on Facebook, so you can see these and see past ones. So any other questions for me or? No, and I'm really good with baseball trivia too. So. Yeah. All right, well, I'm going to let our famous lender, Kathy Hesbergen, here's your thing. And we have a,
Okay.
Is this what you're looking for?
Oh, you have one of those? That's great.
We're high tech here.
There you go. Hey, Karen, would you help me give one of these to everybody? Yeah, they have any of them. I would like to give out a little something so you can follow me as I speak, or they can ask some comments on it. I've already got to report back, so it's whatever you want to say. By the way, I'm Kathy Hesberger. I'm a lender and I've been doing this for just 17 years. Not too many years. I have a lot of people who ask me, hey, why the interest rates are so high? Hey, Karen. I printed out some of the sheets that are difficult to see. So when I get to these sheets, they're gonna have a full-size page. I'm gonna get 3 more of these. Oh, I'm sorry. So these are 3 packages. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold on, one more. One more and we're good, right? There we go. So the good news is they're not going to be recording me like that. See if I can work it out. So, home buying, making it more than a dream. How many of you have been thinking about buying a home for a while? This isn't your first time, right? And I tell you what, when you think about the interest rates and I start to talk to you about what the mortgage payment is, you're going to be wondering, why am I buying if my mortgage payment is going to be higher than my rent is? So I'm going to explain tonight why, how you grow that kind of wealth. So the average homeowner has a net worth of $245,700 more in retirement than the average renter. The average renter has about $6,600 in retirement. Why? Because your rent keeps going up and you're paying someone else's mortgage, right? So home ownership is really their first step to growing wealth. And I don't know if Bill's going to like what I'm saying, but I love for people to use the down payment assistance program to buy their first home. Why? Because you ought to be able to buy a starter home. Maybe it isn't the perfect home, but you ought to be able to get into a home with a down payment assistance program. They're wonderful. Makes it a lot easier. If you've got a few $1,000s and you're using the down payment assistance, Karen will tell you right now that very few sellers are giving seller closing help, right? Because when I asked her, I'm like, well, can this borrower get, maybe 3% closing help? She's like, well, she's nice to me. So, so my goal is to help you not just buy your first house, but to realize how to pay down that mortgage and get a little more equity in that property. So in a few years, you could rent it, let someone else pay off the mortgage and buy the next house. What do you do with that house after somebody else pays off the mortgage? Well, you put your kids through school, you put your kids through college, or you retire, or heck with the kids, let them join the military, right? Take the money and go on vacation, whatever you want to do. The nice thing about when you have someone else living in a property that you bought, they're paying off that mortgage. And when you borrow money from that property, that is tax-free money. So it's just a lot of exciting things you can do with home ownership. You can also take cash out of that property to help you buy the second house, or you can just sell it. I didn't like being a renter. I did that. I moved up. My son rented his first house. I got him into a house at age 21. And at 35, he didn't want to be a landlord anymore. He had 3 kids. I get it. So this is our buy risk versus rent calculator. This is that big one with the green certified mortgage planning logo at the top. So this is a man, he goes by the Commander because he's a police officer. This is a real story. Got into a house recently, and his rent was $1,800 a month, but his mortgage payment was going to be $2,796. His wife wanted the house for their 2 children, and he said, Kathy, I don't see how I'm going to be growing well. So we did this buy versus rent calculator for him, and we'll do one for you when you're ready as well. And what I could see is in 7 years that he's going to be worth $135,000 if he buys, but he'll be worth about $28,000 by paying less in rent than he is in mortgage. He actually bought with a down payment assistance program, and he got $15,000 for the down payment. So subtract that, he's still $120,000, $120,000 ahead of the game. So that's why. Don't worry about it. Well, at least look at the statistically. And this is based upon housing prices going up 5% a year. What did they go up in DC? Average 11% a year. You all are in gold. Now, if you're using a down payment assistance program, you can't use this buy down sheet. You can buy discount points. Well, you can't even buy discount points with the DPA. I'm sorry. Oh, yes, with DC you can. I'm sorry. I've got like 5 different down payment assistance programs I do. So with the DC down payment assistance program, I choose the rate. So I can actually allow you to buy the rate down or have the seller buy it down. And this is a 2-1 buy down worksheet. And it shows that if your initial interest rate were at 7%, your first year, the interest rate would be 5%, would lower your payment significantly. Your second year, your interest rate would be 6%. And then year 28 through 30, it would go back to the fixed 7% rate. But why would you want to buy down? Well, because our Fed chairman, Powell, has said that starting February of 2022, the interest rates are going to start going down. He said, look, they're not going to go down to the 3s. They're going to go down to about the 5.5% range. So what can you do when the interest rates go down? You can refinance into a lower rate, but you can pay a lower rate for the first 2 years. See, in this system, you will see that on year 1, there will be $5,300 of the $8,000 buy down that hopefully the seller pays. If you refinance after year 1, you'll still have year 2 funds available, which is $2,700. Who does that belong to? It belongs to you. It helps you to refinance. It goes towards your principal. We call it a principal curtailment. It actually goes to buy your mortgage down. So there are 1-1 buy downs, 2-1 buy downs, and 3-1 buy downs. You're gonna have my phone number. You're gonna be able to call me, and I'm gonna go over all this again. Hopefully, you're gonna be able to absorb 10% of what I'm saying. But it's okay. I like that you're taking notes because this is exciting stuff. I love this. Yes, ma'am.
Give you that.
Did you 2%?
Yeah,
It's about 40%.
They're getting more than they're asking for.
Karen,
So normally, once you find a property, you negotiate that they give you this amount of money. So, a lot of times.
And they go, I mean, that's.
Yeah, so most of the last deal that we did, we had an HPAP deal that actually just got ratified, yay.
yeah, so this is our second HPAP deal together.
Yeah, so, I asked for 4% closing help. And we raised the price up. You have to make sure that when you raise the price up, it doesn't it's not over the appraised value. So once it's appraised, if it works, we can add that 2% on top, 3% on top of whatever it is that you need at the time. So with Kathy, I normally call her, send her the listing, and then we will work out the numbers. Once we figure out what the numbers are, that's how I negotiate my deal with the seller.
Yeah.
Make sense?
What Bill says, or
I guess I don't understand why they do, because you're getting more.
Okay, so this is the conversation. So if, say you had a house, $400,000, right? You have it on the market, $400,000, right? So we come in, Kathy say she needs 2%, which is $8,000, right? So we'll rate the offer for 402. And most of the time they will accept.
or we'll write it for 410 if we're asking for 10,000
Right.
back.
So we will put that extra on top. You're actually financing it, but we'll put it on top.
It's a lot
Thank you.
easier to pay for $10,000 over 30 years than it is to pay that additional $500 to $600 a month.
That's not good. Towards your.
Your mortgage?
Price, that's something.
Yes, it does add more to your mortgage. So if you're buying something for 400 or you're buying it for 410, yeah, you're paying $10,000 more. So I'm giving you a mortgage for the 410 minus your 3 or 3.5% down. I often sometimes help people. We have lender buy downs. Sometimes the seller said, "Oh, this is a very sought after property. I have 20 offers. I am not going to give you anything." So then maybe the borrower says, "Look, Patty, I just can't do that." We look at buying the rate down for 1 year. Maybe we work at a little bit. I give you some money and you give me, and you pay some money. We buy it down for a year. But we're in a very difficult time right now with the interest rates. But we're going to be in a more difficult time when the interest rates start to go down and there's another 30, 60, 90 offers on every property. The most difficult time to buy in DC was when the interest rates were about 3%. I had young couples going in trying to buy $750,000 condos. There were so many offers and they were going 50,000 to 100,000 above appraised value. That means that money was coming out of their pocket. But those young couples, they don't want to buy now when they don't want to buy with a 7% interest rate or a 6.5% interest rate. Cause it's like going every week. Every time I get the interest rate down and people start buying, we have another Fed meeting. They raise it another, quarter point in cost. And the lender gets all scared and the mortgage-backed securities have issues. So there's a lot of problems going with the Fed raising like this, because what it's doing to the banks. I know you all don't care about that, but that's my world. What I do on each individual loan as I walk you through this. I hold your hand on the financial end. That's why I got into this 17 years ago. We went through a very large bank who I will not name in front of a large group of people. And my husband said, one of us has got to go to school for this. This is our biggest investment. Because these big banks don't tell you everything, don't tell you anything. So I said, you know what? I'll just learn and I'll tell people. And that's what I do. So steps to owning a home, you get a lender pre-approval. You choose a loan program. We're going to work on that together. Which loan program works with your credit score? You might be FHA, you're not going to do an USDA and DC, but you might be conventional. You might be able to do the home ready or home possible, which is conventional, 3% down. Then you hire your realtor. You give Karen a call, or you could try to find somebody better, but I don't think you will. You go house shopping. Yay, the fun part, right? You write an offer. And that's where a really qualified real estate agent comes in. Boy, writing offers in this day and age, it comes to creativity, comes to boldness, comes to having a lender and an agent to work together well is important, because she'll give me the listing agent's number. She'll say, this is the house we're writing on. This is the time I'm putting the contract in. I pick up the phone, I call the listing agent and I tell them how qualified you are. I say, look, I've got a very qualified buyer. I've seen all of their documents. In fact, I've even sent them up to an underwriter for a loan commitment. So all we have to do is order the appraisal. We're going to cut off 4 days of closing. They get really excited about that. They get really excited that they find a lender that's actually going to pick up the phone and respond. I think that's rare.
And we're so proactive. A lot of times our offers is always accepted. I have not had a time,
Tough girl.
unless it's a multiple situation where they have bid it above and beyond. But for the most part, most of our offers are actually accepted because we work together like that and we are able to service you all. So it could be a win-win situation only.
That's it? We don't do anything else on that? Ah, property inspections. I hate that part. I hate that. You should be talking about property inspections.
So a lot of times, once we get an offer and it's ratified, the next thing is the home inspection. At that time, once the inspector tells me everything that's going wrong with the house, I have to go back to the seller and negotiate the things that really needs to be taken care of. When we have a DC program, it's a little bit more strict than just you buying a house. You understand what I'm saying? So a lot of times.
Well, if it's HPAP, but if it's just their
HPAP, right.
traditional DC for me with the 3 or 4% down,
Right,
not as,
not as strict.
yeah,
but
they're
for
easy.
HPAP, certain things happen. And, with VA, certain things have to happen.
Right, VA and FHA, you know, if you're buying a house that's, 100 years old, they really look for, chipped paint, things like that. The sellers get nervous. Karen's got a team of contractors that'll go in and fix the chip paint. And the contractors sometimes get paid at closing. This way the seller doesn't have to worry about it. So we explain all those things to the seller at the very beginning, like, oh, don't worry about this and this and this. Don't worry about taking an FHA loan on this because we've got you covered. They get excited that, hey, maybe maybe your offer is $5,000 higher than the conventional and we promised to take care of the issue. Finalize the loan after you do the property inspection. So your realtor is going to write a contract that says, hey, you have 7 days for those inspections. And your lender is going to tell you, oh, no, you don't. Your contract says you have 7 days, but I need you to get that inspector out there like now, immediately. Why? Because I don't want to order the appraisal until you've got the property inspection. By the way, you are there with the property inspector. So
And technically, you have 7 days, period. So once we have a ratified contract, your 7 days start. So by the time the contract is ratified, you have to make a phone call, you have to make the appointment, and then you have to be able to, within that 7 days, go get that property inspected, get the report back, and then we'll start negotiating. But at that point, that's when she will make the,
Yeah. If the property inspection is pretty good, we're gonna go ahead and order the
Right.
appraisal if it's minor things.
Right, so time is most
But-
definitely of the
But
essence.
if you have a big problem, why do you want to pay $600 for an appraisal until you hear back from the seller, right? So it's all about teamwork. Oh, so finalizing the loan. Once you do the property inspection, I may need some updated documents. Maybe it's been a couple months since you got pre-approved and now you have a contract that's ratified. So I might need you to give me the most recent 30 days of pay stubs. I might need you to update your bank statement, things like that. So those little documents, come on. Say what?
Say your income had increased, okay, since the
Right.
60 days. Is that gonna affect like a home assistance loan?
So it doesn't affect when you're getting the 3 or 4% like the DC for me. When you're getting those down payment assistance, it does not affect it. HCAP is different. Most of my borrowers that have HCAP approval, where they can get up to $202,000 for down payment and up to $4,000 for closing costs, for that $206,000, it's income dependent. And, so it is very stringent. So I've had, 2 DC police officers who during the riots had a lot of overtime. So down payment assistance programs, look at your income, the best month you've ever had and multiply that by 12. Lenders take your overall income and divide it by 12, right? Make 100,000 divided by 12. Well, if you make 100,000 and you have 10,000 1 month in overtime, you now have 220,000 divided by 12. So we talk about that. We talk about that. So yeah, you can make more if you are right on the line of what the program will allow. Yes, you could work too much overtime and not qualify, but probably not. Most of my borrowers don't go above, who are using down payment assistance, don't go above that at that income level. Because the more, if they have to work more, the more children they have, the more income they're allowed. So we'll talk about that. You know, maybe there are people here who make, you know, $300,000-$400,000 and they don't qualify for the down payment assistance programs. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the inspections.
Okay,
So you're essentially paying for this.
correct.
Correct? So if, let's say, the findings of the inspection are unfavorable,
Exactly. You don't want the house. Don't
So
get your
now-
money back
you said you don't get your money.
from it. So buying a house is a big investment. You have to think about it. You know, people think, well, wait a minute. I invested that $400 and I didn't want to go through with the house. Well, you didn't want to go through with the house. You didn't want to buy a $500,000 house or $1 million house that was no good. So I'd say 400, 500 per inspection, you're doing good, right? You have to be prepared for these things. I always tell people, I'm going to give you a number that you're going to have at the very beginning. So we're going to go into this a little bit more and you're going to see how I protect you from day one. Walk through. You walk through the house right before closing. You make sure that the seller didn't do something like pull the TV out of the wall and leave a big gaping hole. Things like that.
And you also make sure that the things that you saw at the time that you put the offer in are still the things that's in the house. Because I've had situations where they.
Chandeliers.
Up that,
They take chandeliers out.
yeah, they take the chandeliers out, they replace the washer and dryer with an older washer and dryer. I've had places where they've taken the appliances out the kitchen and putting, you know, old stuff that
Who
they
does
have upstairs. You know, so those are the reasons why the horrible thing is we went back for the walkthrough and they had a flood in the basement. It was almost like it was a river downstairs in the basement. And if we had not went back, it had not rained, but if we had not went back, we would not have seen
And that is the universe telling you that is not the house for you.
it. Yeah.
Or someone. Okay, what am I looking for? I'm looking for your credit history. I'm looking for job history, 2 years of employment, not with the same job, doesn't have to be the same job. If you work 2 jobs and you want me to use the income of both jobs, you have to have worked not those 2 jobs, but 2 jobs for 2 years. And we're gonna need pay stubs or LESs equivalent to 30 days. 2 months of bank statements for closing. When we talk, I may just take 1 month of bank statement to get you pre-qualified, pre-approved, to say, hey, this will be okay, just that 1 month of bank statement, right? But I'm gonna let you know what you shouldn't be doing. You shouldn't be putting cash in. And a young man today who said, oh, I put $3,000 cash in my account. I'm like, why? Well, it was okay. It was for my tax return. Well, I don't understand. Well, yeah, I got my tax return. I went out and cashed it. And I held on to it. And then I decided to put 3,000 in my account today. And I'm like, well, the underwriter is not going to allow you to use that to buy the house because it's of anti-money laundering. They're going to be allowed, for his particular case, the underwriter will ignore 1,500 of that 3,000, the way you put it in. So you cannot just go throwing cash into your account. After I get those, you're pre-qualified. If the IRS put the check in, that's okay. He didn't do that. He went out, got his check and cashed it. And then 4 months later, he decides to, what was he thinking? I know. He's young. What do you do? He's okay though. So.
Yeah, standing in front of the camera.
He's standing in front of the camera.
So, yeah,
I'm sorry, I was.
I got yelled at last one.
All right, so. Let's say that your credit isn't perfect. It isn't what I need to get you a really good interest rate or even get you pre-approved. We're gonna run a software system that says, maybe you need to pay down some credit cards. I had a man who needed a 720. He had a 680. Why? He never used his credit cards. I said, go to McDonald's, spend $10, come back. Your score is going to jump in 2 weeks. Your score is going to jump up to 20 points. Some people are just too good. But that's not typically why we have people pay down credit cards. Sometimes you move funds to a lower used credit card. So I run a software program if your credit score is kind of iffy to jump to the next level. Let's say you're like 680, but we want to get you to a conventional level. We might run that software to say, hey, if you do this and this, we're going to get you into a conventional loan. A little bit better for you. I can raise in just 2 or 3 days, I can raise your score anywhere from 10 points to 154 points. You can raise your score in 30 to 60 days. I do something called a rapid rescore. I tell you, look, go in, pay off your Macy's bill, pay off your Capital One bill, pay them down to $5, send me the next day, you pull the statement off the internet, send it to me. I'm going to do a rapid rescore. And this is where your score is going to be. Your score is at a 590 now. We're going to get it up to a 639. We're going to determine what you can afford, not just what you qualify for. Look, if you're comfortable paying $2,600 a month and that's all you're comfortable with because you take care of multiple family members that aren't on your credit report, then we've got to tell you what that amount is. Maybe that's a $300,000 house. But if you're you might be qualified for a $4,000 a month house. We're going to tell you what that is. I'm going to give you the pre-approval for the 4,000. I'm going to give you an estimated fee sheet and a pre-approval for the amount that you're comfortable paying. Because it's really about your comfort level. This is a 30-year commitment. While you might be able to sell this house, and most people do, sell or refinance in 7 years, it's a 30-year commitment. This isn't like buying a car where you can drive it back and it just dings your credit. Now, Bill already explained this: principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. There's also mortgage insurance. So principal is the amount that's actually going to pay your loan down. Interest on a 30-year mortgage, the first 10 years, your payment is almost all interest. Very different than a car loan, where that $6,000 on that car loan might be averaged over a 5-year period, and it's equal every month. On a house, the first 10 years is always almost all interest. So what do? We ask you to make one extra payment, if you can, every year on your own. One extra payment every year, and this is approximate. For the first 10 years of your mortgage, will take 7 years off of your mortgage. So it's like getting a 23-year mortgage. That's kind of nice, right? You can retire a little bit earlier. Your property taxes, well, nobody can escape that. That's the government. The homeowner's insurance is what we call like fire insurance, or where the dog bites the neighbor, so that's just your hazard insurance. You choose it, but it's paid in your mortgage payment, typically, unless you put 20% down. Then it will still cost you a little bit more, but those are your what we call pity. If there's a condo fee, we looked at your debt to income ratio. If there's an HOA fee, we look at that in your debt to income ratio. If you have mortgage insurance, you're not putting 20% down. I'm going to tell you what that is. I'm going to give you an estimated fee sheet on a couple properties, not every property that you think about looking at, but for a few properties, and especially when you're ready to make an offer, we're going to go in and do the numbers on an estimated fee sheet. Why? Because this is a big deal. You have everybody afraid here. What happened? That's it? Oh, what cash do you need to contribute? Look, you should have, once I give you that estimated fee sheet, and we say, look, you're going to need to bring 10,000 to the table after the down payment assistance programs pays the other part. I want you to have about $1,500 at least somewhere. Why? You have an appraisal, you have a property inspection, and taxes could be off by a month when you get to the closing table. When we get closer, we know exactly when you're going to close, then we can firm up how much the taxes are. We're good, but we could be off by a month. Your earnest money deposit, that EMD, is usually 1% of the purchase price. It can be more. Sellers sometimes like more. Talk to your realtor. That's a real estate question. The appraisal is not 500, it's usually about 6.25. I don't know what, I must have been thinking that, back when I was 20 or something. I don't know when I wrote that. Home inspections can be 400, 600. They can be
Depending on the square footage of that.
depending on the square footage. Thank you. Termite inspections could be 60 to 150, depending upon. So how much do you need to contribute? Typically 3.5%. Veterans and rural housing, USDA, is 100% financing. So if you are a veteran here, thank you for your services. Are there any veterans here? No. Police officers, firefighters? No? Okay. Your down payment. It can, you can withdraw up to 10,000 from your IRA without any penalty. Your 401k loan has no tax penalty. Gifts can be provided by a relative. and down payment assistance programs, which you're smart enough to know because you're here tonight. What are closing costs? Basically lender fees. Lender fees are under, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, what?
If you want to get a loan from the 401k, is that gonna go toward the debt to the ratio or not? What do you mean?
No, it does not go towards your debt ratio. So there's lender fees are called appraiser, credit report, flood cert fee, underwriting and processing fees. Rarely do lenders have a lot of fluffy fees like they did 10, 12 years ago. The title company fees, you actually, your realtor is going to suggest a title company, your lender is going to suggest a title company. But ultimately you are allowed to pick your title company. Government transfer tax and recording fees. DC is really exceptional with this. So they're a lot lower than in the state of Maryland or Virginia. So, and then there's the realtor admin fee. Your real estate agent is typically paid by the seller. The only thing you pay is their admin fee, and it's typically around $495. You get a lot of work for a little bit of money, and that's paid at the closing table. This is that initial fee worksheet that I gave you. This is what I'm going to be giving you as we move along. It breaks down the fees. I think it's better than the one that the government gives you, the loan estimate, but that's just me. Most of my clients say, you know, we got the loan estimate. Can you give me another initial fee sheet so I understand it? Sure. Hit the button and it prints. Anybody have any questions on this? You see the subordinate financing for 16,778? That's a silent second from a down payment assistance program. If you were doing HPAP, it would be 202,000 in that line J. Basic mortgage programs or FHA, conventional, VA or jumbo loans. FHA is for lower credit scores. The debt to income ratio can go up to 57% on the back end, 47% on just the housing cost. So that back end, 57% is all of your debt, including the housing cost.
The main difference between the back and
The front end is just the house. So there are people who have zero debt. They can only go up to 47% debt to income ratio on the house. But if you happen to have a car payment, a couple credit cards, you can go up to 57% total. But your front end, that house alone can't be above 47 because we just won't get an approve eligible with it. It isn't my rule. It's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They set up DU and LP, so we just can't get that. Okay. What I love about FHA is it's 3.5% down from 1 to 4 unit properties. And the mortgage insurance has been lowered recently by the president. It's down to 0.55%. The lowest FICO score is 580. But the interest rate will be a little bit higher for a 580. So we really work to get that score up a little higher. But you can buy. Conventional Fannie Mae, the lowest credit score is 620. It is 3% down if you're a first-time home buyer, 5% down if you own another property or have owned in the last 3 years. If one of the borrowers is a first-time home buyer and the other one isn't, it's 3% down. It is 25% down on a 3 or 4 unit, unlike FHA, which is 3.5% down on a 3 or 4 unit. Big difference, 15,000 down, 150,000 down, right? I'm sorry, you all were raising your hands.
yeah, I just wonder, the lowest equal score that you mentioned over there, 620. it means, while you are processing the loan, you are just looking at the bigger score or the other, score, provider, I mean, the credit score provider, companies like, the transition union or.
So like, oh yeah, so TransUnion, Equifax and
Yeah, yeah.
Experian, all lenders nationwide use the three large credit repositories. And it is the middle score that we use.
I see,
We don't care which one it is.
okay,
Unlike autos where the two of you can go on the loan and if one of you has a 780 and the other has a 620, they use the 780, right? We're not a car dealership.
okay.
Okay. By the lowest FICO score is 620, you better have at least 20% down because we're not going to get an approval eligible until you're above 700 with 3% down. It just isn't going to happen. Private mortgage insurance is with FHA and it depends upon your credit score. The higher the score, the higher the down payment, the lower the PMI is. So a lot of people believe that unless you put 20% down, you'll pay PMI, but PMI actually decreases, right? As you put, if you're putting 15% down, that PMI is almost gone and it typically is only there for 2 years, not 11 years. The mortgage insurance premium MIP with FHA stays with you for the life of the loan unless you put more than 10% down. With a conventional loan, it goes away in 11 years or when you have 20% equity in the property. VA, we don't have any veterans here, so I'm not going to make you sit through this wonderful program. But your realtor will send you properties, show you properties. Do you want to get up here and talk at all? Not too much, or they're starting to nod on us. No, seriously. They're like, does anybody need a break? No, we're almost done.
So I just wanted to say a couple of things about finding properties for you. A lot of times when you're wondering what type of agent that you would want to hire, and most of the time you want an agent that has some experience. I've been in the business for 21 years. A lot of times you want an agent that's familiar with the areas. So I service DC and I'm actually a Washingtonian, but I live in PG County. And I also service Maryland and Virginia. A lot of times you would want to know whether I know how to negotiate deals. And I can tell you, most of the time I write at least 10 contracts a day. And I don't think I have a day off every once in a while. But most of the time I'm working Monday through Sunday. I'm full-time agent, 20, don't call me 24 hours, but I will answer your call if you call me, and I will respond to anything that has to happen. I'll keep you online as far as your time limits, with your inspection, your appraisal, your letter of commitment, and all those things. And again, I negotiate contracts, and we normally try to strategically negotiate the contract so it could be a win-win situation for you and the seller. Because a lot of times if we're doing a hostile takeover with the seller, they're not really want to sell you that property because they feel as though they're losing out. So we try to make it a win-win situation for both ends.
Okay,
That's it.
time to find your dream home.
And you get a house, and you get a house, and you
You
get.
get a house. So I basically went over all this, writing the contract. After you write 1 or 2 contracts, or maybe even your first contract, yay, the realtor calls you, your offer's been accepted. You'll do that home inspection that we discussed. You'll call your lender, you'll update your documents. You'll prepare for moving day. Isn't that exciting? And you're saying, no, I don't want to pack boxes. They have companies that do that. There's an app for that. Closing on your home. We will give you a closing disclosure, a minimum of 3 days prior to. You will know the exact amount that cash to close. But we're going to keep you updated at every change. We're going to give you a loan estimate on when you get the contract, we're going to give you a loan estimate within 3 days. It's going to tell you what cash you need to close. It's going to be really, really close. Why? Because there's loan officer jail if I don't do it right. Right? Isn't that what they call it now? They fine us a lot. That's what loan officer jail is. So, but we're going to keep you updated every step of the way. I'm Kathy Hesberger. My information is in the back. We are Fannie Freddie Ginnie Direct. We are not a broker, although we've been brokering to other companies for over 30 years. But I am the lender. I'm the actual lender. So we have during COVID, we still had 580 credit scores, where brokers had 660. But they trust us. They trust us because we work for the company, and they know when I give them a loan that I've made sure that you're comfortable with it and we're not going to have to buy it back. This is Karen. She gave me a lot of information to put up there. She told you everything. Any questions? We're done.
I'm really good at baseball trivia. I told you that's a big advantage. Yeah.
You're so good.
Sure.
Say that DC open doors only applies to DC, not Maryland or Virginia.
Correct. All of these programs are only for DC. I actually used to work for the Maryland Mortgage Program, and I joke with lenders and realtors. I'll answer questions about Maryland's program for $50 a question, or if they buy me a drink. But I answer questions about Maryland for borrowers for free. Maryland and Virginia both have down payment programs. I will say you don't get nearly as much as you can through DC with the HPAP program. Or, you know, and typically open doors. Maryland does have a pretty good program if you have student debt and you want to buy a house. But almost every state has a housing finance agency that provides down payment. Like Maryland's is a first time home buyer. What's that?
Yeah. And you know what I love about the DC HFA program is that the loan amount that they're giving you is on that purchase price, where in Maryland, they're giving it to you on the loan amount. But just a few more bucks, and it helps. Like if you're getting 3%, you're getting the down payment. In
Yeah,
Maryland,
and
you're
like
getting-
when I was in Maryland too, they used to just give out like a flat amount for programs. But like I said, if you have credit and income, and only thing you need is 3% of the sale price. So Open Doors operates that. Well, we can do that. So any other questions? You know, I always like to leave with 2 quotes, though. I'm telling my other realtor, Dr. Ben Carson came here and spoke once when he was Secretary of Housing, and he pointed out that the average net worth of a homeowner is around $200,000, whereas the average net worth of a renter is around $5,000.
That's how we started our program tonight.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually up to 245.7, right? Isn't that versus 6,600?
Okay, so I've always stuck with, yeah, I'm always like, so the quicker you can become a homeowner, you start accruing personal wealth. And then, like she said, those first 10 years, you are paying interest, but there comes a point where you start getting more and more equity in your home because you're making payments and paying down that principal, you're getting more in equity. And because the price is going up, it's almost like, I like to say, like compounding interest in a savings account. It works the same way. And Albert Einstein was the one who said compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. Those who understand it benefit from it, and those who don't pay it. Again, the quicker you can own a home and start accruing equity, the quicker you're on your way to personal wealth. So good luck. And my only hard, fast rule is I invited Kathy because she's a preferred lender and knows what she's doing. You have to use a lender. I understand we have over 90 lenders. You may use someone else. So my job is to help you. But you can call me anytime during the process, except once this team has found you a home and you have the keys to your home and you're figuring on who you can call to help you move. Under no circumstances, call me.
No, I know.
So,
You'll
but other than that,
personally
you can call me with any help. No.
You'll personally.
I have 2 daughters who are PG County teachers who've moved and bought their home, so I don't do that anymore. So good luck, and like I said, if you did drive, the car will take it wet, and take some pizza with you as well. The way to the car will open the gate. So good luck, guys.
brought like 5 of these, if anybody would like that.
Yeah, because I. Parking.
Did you have a parking here or no?
No, I parked on the street.
I'm sorry, I just unplugged it because I wasn't sure. Is it gonna blow up or anything? Oh, okay. Sorry.
Gate, but I was. Buying a lot one.
I mean, honestly, like I said, not because I used to be a lot.